Hello and welcome back to Happy Little Roundabouts. This is episode 1857B, as I'm pretty sure I'll be calling it now. It's the second half of the project for an interchange here between a highway bypass and a radial highway. And let's get back to it. I think we have some more transition curves to do. Alright, so, yeah, transition curves. I could have, gone ahead and done these without recording them, but, I'm probably going to have to do a short episode just about how I draw transition curves before I can start skipping stuff like that. Alright, so we need a circle with specified radius tangent to two entities at twice the radius of our curves we're transitioning in and out of. And rather than do a whole bunch of overlapping circles, I think I'm just going to focus on one at a time, or two if they are in opposite directions. That'll make it easier to see what we're actually doing. Let's hide some unnecessary layers. We want to keep construction. We can make the lanes go away. We can make the property lines go away. Yeah, that'll simplify things a bit. Okay, so circle here, and we want that one. Split this at the center of transition circle. Split the transition circle at the new endpoint where we just made the line, and at the center of the actual curve circle, which I'm having trouble actually making the cursor go to. Again. Oh, yes. Should be right around here somewhere. I don't know why it's coming up with the midpoint of that straight segment. I'm nowhere near it. Seriously, QCAD, what the hell? Okay, construction lines to the rescue again. Okay, now let's get back to this. Yeah, that looks right. I don't think we actually need that line anymore. And this one we can cut there. Okay. While we're at it, I think I'm going to do this construction line trick again with this next arc, because the next transition curve, we're going to do two of them. One of them using this center, and one of them using the center up here, which I think is where the relative spot is at already. Why is that there? Okay, circle. I want the circle to be a center line. And then here. Cut the straight line. Cut the straight line. That's not right. That's not right. What's going on here? Center to... Is this just QCAD's arc display error? I think maybe it is. Alright. Delete that, and the heck. We cut this one, didn't we? Did I already delete that? I think I must have. Must have. We're just doing brilliantly with grammar today, aren't we? Oh, I've got lines on top of each other here. How did I end up with overlapping lines? Oh, I did that circle wrong. The circle's in the wrong place. And I'm going to do this circle again just because I really am doubting that it's tangent to this line here. Unless... Okay, let's draw a line from the center of that circle to where it's perpendicular to this line. And what's the distance? 3520. And the radius of the circle, 3520. It's tangent, it's just drawn funky. Alright, so I won't redo that, but I will redo this circle because I kind of have to. There we go. Now, divide this straight line at its center. Divide this circle at center of that arc and end point of the line where it's tangent. Divide this circle at the center of that circle and the end point of the line. Where the heck did that go? Uh-huh. One of my biggest complaints about QCAD is that arc drawing issue. Now we can trim the excess off of these curves. What? Oh, right. That's excess. Seriously, that's like a whole foot, basically. Don't need those anymore. Three more transition curves to go for this particular road segment. This is a center line for a frontage road, as is this. Those are definitely going to be modified. Anyway, let's do a couple more transition curve circles. Nope, not that one. That solution. Cut the straight line there. That's not the straight line. Cut the straight line there. Okay, so excess will be deleted. There's that. And then excess will be deleted. Now we can cut our transition circles. No, not just yet. I need to do this center finding trick again. Okay. Now we'll cut the transition circle from there at the end of the straight line to projection through the center of the other circle. And again here. End of the straight line segment through to the projection through the center of that circle. Don't need those anymore. Now we can trim this excess arc. And this excess arc. Problem. I'm gonna run out of room. Transition curves are gonna completely eat up this curve. Alright, so we'll We'll delete this curve, delete the transition into it, and we'll go about that in a slightly different way. Extend that center line. This is obviously too sharp, too rapid of a merge. So, what are we going to do about that? We want it to curve. Instead of using a 1760-foot radius curve that we transition in and out of, I'll just throw in a 35-20-foot radius curve with no transition at all. And we want it to come out of that with the center line 24 feet from the edge of traveled way that we have established already. So we'll put a construction line 24 feet. How exactly do we want to do? We need to establish our merging angle. What did we do over here? That was last night. Let's see. There's 24 feet out and 12 feet back. Well, it runs 440 feet long. So 440 feet length and 12 feet of merge. 440 by 12. So we'll go 12 feet over, lengthen that by 440. Draw a center line, well, not a center line, a construction line basically, to there. Alright, so this line segment is at the angle we need. We want it to come out of the curve at that angle and that distance. Let's do a curve, but not necessarily in the position we want it. Radius 35-20. Not trimmed. And this curve, we're going to slide it along the angle of this center line until its end point is along this line. So we will draw a construction line parallel to this center line through the current end point of the curve. And extend it to meet that line there. Now I'll select this, modify, move/copy, give it a vector from this point to that point, And I don't think you can see this right now, but I've got a dialogue about move/copy options. Sure, let's go ahead and delete the original. And we will make the new one a center line. Wait. That wasn't where the end point of the curve was. Backing up a few steps. Parallel to this through that point. That's not quite the trim operation I thought I was doing with the hotkeys, but it'll work anyway. Okay, make that a center line. Modify, move, copy. Go from that point to that point. And there we go. Now we just need to trim things up a bit. Oops. Okay, let's check our dealie here. We've got a curve, transition out, short straight line, transition to the other thing. You know, I am just not comfortable with how short that curve ended up. Well, the straight bit, actually. I could do a more complex transition curve from this curve to this less curved curve, but, you know, I'm just going to leave it. It's not perfect, but it'll be good enough. These transition curves are kind of a luxury anyway, and it's not that important to get it right with this much precision, or maybe it is and I'm just talking out of my butt. But, yeah, let's just get on with this project. Since we've established the angle we need, we just need to get it to go through that point. Delete some construction lines. Extend that. Okay, that's done, basically. Trim this up. Then we'll do our ETWs for it. That'll make it look nice and pretty. Eventually I'm going to do pavement edges for all these, but I think I'm going to wait till I get all the ramps and their diverges and merges done before I really mess with the pavement edges. Break out a gap here. Meet those lines, meet these lines, and what I'm doing here actually is I'm having two lanes merge into the right lane of another two lanes. So not exactly ideal, but it'll probably be signed as an inside lanes merge, immediately followed by a right lane ends. And it'll probably be revised some number of years later to have the lanes on one of the roadways end before the merge, so it's just one lane joining another two. But I like this more elegant style that they weren't afraid of back in the 60s and 70s. One thing I noticed is when I was deleting this intersection, I actually deleted a whole length section of ETW for this country road here. And you know, I'm just going to go ahead and delete its twin. Actually, no. Because to bring it back, I'll have to do a offset off of this one, which is a whole lot longer, and it'll have basically duplicates along these lines. Alright, so I'll offset from this one, but not 24 feet. These are 10.5-foot lanes, so 21 feet. And I've got it a little too long there because this intersection isn't perfectly square. You may have noticed these grid squares are kind of askew, and I'm attributing that to survey error. I did that on purpose, actually, because that actually happens in some places. It's not always handled exactly like this, but I'm kind of inspired by northern Hamilton County, Ohio when I do that. Even though much of the rest of the surrounds, I'm taking inspiration from an area in, I think, Wisconsin, where I've seen some people redesign it a few times on the AA Roads forum. Okay, so that's more or less back to normal, and we'll probably have to cut it back further, but I'd rather cut those existing lines than have to reduplicate the much longer line and then cut it back, so yeah. Well, let's save. And this is pretty. And the rest of what we're going to be doing is low-speed, single-lane ramps. Hopefully our transition curves will be easier to deal with because they'll be smaller radius curves. What is this? My room is a mess. You cannot see that, but you might be able to hear my feet shuffling around on the layer of things on the floor. Okay, so we've got a couple of loops to draw. Our loops will have a radius of 440 feet. They'll be merging in with this and diverging from here. So we'll do our construction lines 6 feet out from the established ETW on here. And 8 feet out from the established ETW on here. And those will be the end points of, well, those will be the relatively straight segments that we'll be transitioning into and out of. Except for merging, it'll actually be at an angle like we've been doing. Anyway, we'll allow for our transitions by doing another 4 feet. And now the radius of the loops, 440 feet. And where these intersect will be the center of our loops. This is kind of a slightly more manual method of doing the rounding process that we've been using before, but since these loops go more than 180 degrees of deflection, we'd basically have to take the arc complement of what the built-in round function would do for us. But this is kind of the way I used to do it in TurboCAD too, especially for loops. We'll do circle with radius 440, centered at that intersection and at that intersection. Uh-oh. Okay, that's less than ideal. We can do two things. We can make this a slower ramp with a tighter radius, or we can slide the ramp out this way to give it clearance from this ramp. There'll have to be a connecting ramp here. I think I'm just going to make the loops tighter. Both of them. Really, because, I mean, who's going to take the bypass from the south and then exit and cut back southwest, you know? That's going to be an exit of, you know, local interest. And this one, well, really it's more to make it fit than anything else. And, I mean, I guess I could have done this ramp first, and then I would have had an actual constraint to use for designing this, but I really don't feel like redoing it after I spent the better part of the first half of this episode doing that. So, tighter loops it is. $330 feet. That's better. These are in the wrong layer, though. Okay, now we will eventually be drawing a bridge abutment that's kind of in the gore of this, but there's a pretty good clear zone, so that shouldn't be too worrying. I think it's safe to say this frontage road and this frontage road can be trimmed back quite a bit. Probably more than even this, but I'm being conservative for now. Okay, so we've got construction lines we can delete. Now, a curve with a radius of 330 feet, if we're assuming an acceleration, a lateral acceleration limit of 4 feet per second, what is our effective speed for this ramp? A equals v squared over r, so that means v squared equals a over r. Wait. A equals v squared over r. V squared over ar equals 1. AR equals V squared. So therefore V squared is A over R. That makes more sense. Or does it? Oh, it's been too many years since I've done algebra. A equals V squared over R. AR equals V squared. Yes. So 4 times 330 is 1320. That is V squared. So, square root of that, 36.33 feet per second. Which is equivalent to 24.77 miles per hour. We'll call it 25. That'll be a nice conservative, because that's only 1/8 of a G, which means if you have a 12% cross slope or super elevation, you would feel no G's traversing this loop at 25 miles per hour. Now, 12% might be a bit on the aggressive side for super elevation. I guess it depends on will you be sliding down the hill if it's covered in ice. So split the difference. Let's say it's a 6% cross slope. You'll be feeling a 6% of a G laterally going around this at 25, 6% of a G laterally the other direction. If you're at a dead stop on this ramp, I think that's pretty good. This is why I've been using this 4 feet per second figure as a good limit when I'm working out how my design speeds figure into all this. So even in a snowy state, that'll work. So we've got our 25 mile per hour loops. It's time to do transition curves. Yeah. Now, one trick that I've done in the past is, since the radius of our transition curve is twice the radius of our curve, now, in these cases, it ideally would be slightly more or less if we want to treat this as having non-zero curvature, but the curvature here is such a small fraction, I'm just going to approximate it as being 0. So the centers of those curves will actually be exactly 660 feet from these construction lines here. So why don't we do that instead of fussing with the... Yes, I've got 2 different methods for drawing transition curves, and I will detail them in more detail in another video. Wait, did I miss one? I clicked twice. Yeah, it went on the wrong side. Okay. Let's... what? Let's trim these construction lines where they meet the circle. Kind of an old habit from TurboCAD, because TurboCAD, if you just snap to the intersection of a circular arc and another entity, you actually won't get an exact location. But if you trim the other entity to the circle, well, if you trim the line to the circle, then you get the endpoint at the exact correct spot. And the only way to get the exact correct intersection of two circular arcs in that program is to use the Meet 2 feature, with which QCAD calls trim both. But QCAD works better in that regard. I'm still a little upset about how its circle tangent to entities functions don't quite work right when some of the entities you're trying to draw a tangent to are straight lines. It says no solution when there clearly are solutions, and sometimes it comes up with solutions that are clearly not tangent to the given entities. So there must be a misplaced plus or minus sign in the code somewhere. But, you know, this is an open source program. Maybe if I can try to find the bug, I could fix it myself. But I have other hobbies to deal with, like this. Let's get back to this. Okay, so this will be a center of our transition. This will be a center of our transition. We'll draw a construction line from there to center, from there to center. Similarly over here. There to center. And to there. Wait a second. Did I do that wrong over here? I think I did. Yep. We need to go from those points will be our centers. Because I'm not doing a ramp like this, I'm doing a ramp like this. We'll extend the... Whoa, that's what I wanted to do. RM, not TM. Extend these all the way across. What? Hey! Perpendicular line. Now, in TurboCAD, I would have had to draw a line from the center of this arc, which is like way over here, to the center of this arc. But here, the perpendicular thing actually works pretty nicely on circular arcs, so I'm just using that. And now extend these to where they need to go. What? Yeah. Wrong trim function. Getting my shortcuts confused. Okay, and now we have endpoints. Except I just realized I messed up the departing angles on these again. The what's it called coming out of a curve? Departing? That's not right. Okay, well, delete that. Delete that. Delete that, delete that. We can use these as a basis. Wrong thing again. Parallel by 12 feet. We want to rotate it slightly counterclockwise. So by 12 and by 12 and lengthen those. Now we're only going to be going, what was it, 33 feet per second? Not the full 110 that I had in mind. But ideally the traffic will be speeding up. 33 to 110, halfway between those. 71.5. Hang on. Yeah, 71.5 feet per second average speed of the ramp times 4 seconds merge time 286. That's 26 times 11. Okay, fine. That'll work. So we'll lengthen those by 286. Draw a new line between them. Alright, so now extend those out to their circles, and then another 4 feet for the transition. These can go away because we don't need them there. Perpendicular line through the ends of those. These are probably parallel because we're doing the same angle to the same straight segment. But just for sure, you know, I'm in the habit of not assuming different parts of a road are parallel. And we'll just extend those where they meet the established ETW. And now we can do our 660-foot parallels. And our trimming trick. Construction line through the center, extend. Yeah. And guess what? We already have the endpoints for our transition arcs. And we have the endpoints for the loop curves themselves. We'll just cut this one here and here. Cut this one here and here. Delete. Delete. I kind of miss doing these this way. And now we'll draw our transition arcs. Center there, radius there, one end point there, other end point where it's perpendicular here. That's a convenient way of doing it. And again, center here, radius out to here, perpendicular to there, and end point there. Center here, radius out to here, perpendicular, and end point. One more. Center here, radius here, end point here, end point there where it's perpendicular. Rather than using the perpendicular feature like that, I could have drawn some perpendicular construction lines, which I believe is what I used to do in TurboCAD. But this works too. Whoa, what did I just do? I think I hit select all. TA is select all? How did I even do TA? I need DI. For divide. Divide that one there. Divide that one there. Delete the splinters. Delete the construction lines. Even those construction lines. Ooh, missed some. Those ramps are starting to look good. Now we just need to do our ETWs. One thing I have noticed in Ohio, I suspected visually, and then one day on a ramp that was actually closed to traffic, I actually pasted out. Although the travel lanes for freeways are 12 feet, the lanes on single lane ramps are 15 feet wide. And how that's dealt with, usually if the ramp is branching off on the right and merging on the right, you can get away with just doing 6 feet from the center on the right and 9 feet to the center on the left. There are other situations where it looks like the engineers preferred to do it a little differently, particularly when you have a ramp that's a single lane that becomes the left lane of something else. How you deal with that, usually, doing 9 feet on the left, you'd end up having to reconcile that with the 6 feet on the left when it's with another lane, unless you wanted to still be 15 feet wide, which would look really goofy. And I'm gesturing with my hands, which you can't see. So they have to, or at least the way I have to do it if I want to simulate that, is I have to make the center lines be like 3 feet off of where I otherwise would do them. But we don't have any instances of single lane ramps that merge or depart on the left, so we don't have to deal with that, and we can just do our ETWs with 6 feet right of center and 9 feet left of center. Now you may notice something I did here. This curve just completely comes out to where it's going to be like a third lane. This is the way it's done in Ohio. There is a length of a lane that's basically like an additional lane before it branches off. Some states treat that a little bit differently for an exit ramp, but I'm used to it, so that's kind of what I draw. I could have done this like another 12 feet this way, because occasionally I'll come across a place where the ramp just peels directly out of the travel lane instead of making its own new lane and then splitting off. But I've started to get in the habit of doing it this way, and I think it ends up looking more realistic that way. So the only thing we need to do then is actually have an extension of this lane. We'll call it a deceleration lane for some distance, and we need to figure out what that distance is. I'll get to that in a moment, but first let me just do these merge treatments here. Trim those and trim these. And I'll use the breakout manual, which I thought was B2, but just making sure using the menu to delete that segment between those points, and presto, again, there. I could have used the automatic breakout segment thing, but I'd have to turn off the center lines for that to work properly. Alright, now I will break this ETW at that end point, and similarly up here. And now I'll meet these two curves. Seriously, QCAD, that just looks wrong. That looks less wrong. Where's the actual end point? Yeah, it's here. That makes sense. Why does it draw the arc all the way over there? That's more than a foot off. Okay, so now what we'll do, bit of a trick that I think I just figured out. We'll make offset ETWs by 12 feet, and then we'll cut them at a specific length. What is the length of deceleration lane we need? I think the difference of v squareds at two ends of a segment will be twice the length of the segment times the acceleration, if I remember my physics formulas. Actually, that's kinetic energy formulas without the mass, and I'm pretty sure that's it. Let me punch those into the calculator. Not the character map. Why is that even open still? Punch those figures into the calculator and see what we come up with. Okay, so v1 squared minus v2 squared double check that. 88 times 88 minus 33 times 33. 6655 equals A times L. Divide by A. Is 4 feet per second a reasonable deceleration rate? Let's just make it 2. Wait a minute. That'd give us a really long deceleration lane. Okay, we'll make it. Well, if we divide by 2, that gives us a length of like 3,300 feet. That's a long deceleration lane. I don't think the deceleration lanes for loops in Ohio are that long. Divide by 2 again, 1663. Now, we'll call it 1760. Something doesn't quite seem right about that. I may have to look at some reference materials to figure that out, because I'm pretty sure in Ohio our deceleration lanes are not that long. It's possible Ohio was actually designed for a larger max acceleration and deceleration. But anyway, we will divide those at a point which will be a distance 1760 along the entity. Is that 1760 from that end or from this end? This must be the correct end because of how it is with the difference between the two. Okay, we'll split that there. And we'll split that. Should be up here somewhere. Why is it doing a curve like that and not there? Okay, trim excess. And then we'll trim these. We'll divide them technically. What? Oh, grid point. The actual end is there. Seriously, QCAD, what the heck? Okay, divide that. Divide that. Delete that piece. Delete that piece. Now, how long of a taper do we want to do? driving past at highway speed. Usually a new lane has a taper that goes out in less than a second. I'll just go with 110 feet length. Actually, minus 110 because we want to shorten these lines. And we'll draw a straight line connecting them. Okay, we've got our loop ramps. That's half of the ramps are inter. Hey, would you look at the time? This has gone on for over an hour already, so I'm going to have to break this into 3 episodes. And, spoiler alert, I actually didn't realize this recording it the first time around, and so I'm doing this split in post, which is a first for me, but hey, I'm learning editing tricks. So, make sure you join us for Happy Little Roundabouts 1857C. Lovely viewers, like and subscribe if you want. I don't want to be, pushy, but, I mean, I don't have anything even monetized yet, so it really doesn't. It might help me in the long run. Okay? So, yeah, you're all lovely. Come back for the next video, which I'll probably be uploading them all at once I get them edited. Yeah, that's all I needed to say. I should really get a musician to play my credit song. Yes, indeedy, yes, indeedy. More credits. There they go. Bye-sies.